Jim Collison, we are live from Infotech 2014 here in Omaha, and we are doing interviews throughout the day for the keynotes and session speakers. I'm here with John Nye, which is just like Bill Nye. We talked about that earlier. John, take a second, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, who you work for, and and I always say, because we do Gallup stuff all the time, and tell us your top 5. But have you ever taken the Gallup Strengths Finder before?
No, I don't think I have.
We'll have to get you something to do
that.
Yeah,
I guess so.
But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name's John Nye, like you said. I work at Hewitt Corporation as an IT security auditor. But I'm not here really on behalf of Hewitt. They just put that because it looks good. I'm also a student at Bellevue University, so I suppose I'm more here on that end.
Sure.
I graduate in November with my degree, Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity. So that'll,
cool.
Yeah, that's a cool one to have, and I'll go on for the master's. I'm a certified ethical hacker, licensed penetration tester, EC Council certified security analyst, and so on.
Yeah, how does one become a ethical hacker?
An ethical.
What
really, I just took a test,
that.
and that was it. But no, you have to sign. You have to sign a lot of things. You gotta say, I'm not going to use this knowledge for ill, which is funny. You don't use the knowledge for ill, but if you don't think like a bad guy, the knowledge is useless. So it's kind of a catch-22. To be an ethical hacker, you have to be able to find that fine line between what's good and what's bad, and what's bad but needs to be done to figure out what can be done that's good to fix things. So it's a tricky tightrope to walk. Yeah.
It's April 2014, and there's a possibility someone could be watching this a year from now, and that's the only why I say that. And of course, we're on the early days of this Heartbleed that's come out.
Yep.
With an open SSL, breach or just it being open, you don't consider that a hack necessily, right?
No, well, I personally have never thought SSL was incredibly secure. In my presentation, I use a Wi-Fi Pineapple, which is a device you use to kind of hack wireless. But I also, in Kali Linux and a lot of other hacking tools, you can strip the SSL off of packets. So, I mean, it's always kind of had its own vulnerabilities. Now, this new one, no, it's not so much a hack, but it can be used to perform a hack. It's really just a bug, is what it is.
Okay. Yeah. Which a hacker could take advantage of, right? Would we say
and they
that,
have.
right?
There's actually been now 2 live attacks, one in Canada and one in UK. That actually, they used the Heartbleed to steal the certificates from a couple of websites and are using that information, or did use that to steal a bunch of data.
And has that been since the announcement?
Since the
announcement, yeah. So, organizations really just need to get that updated.
Yeah, just get
that
fixed.
certificate updated and get it fixed.
And it really was like an option to add that heartbeat onto there that's causing the Heartbleed. And it was an option that most organizations using OpenSSL actually didn't implement. But the few that did are, I guess, paying for it now.
Yeah, and it seemed like everybody. We use I use a service called LastPass, which you're probably familiar with.
I love LastPass. Yeah.
And I actually have spent all weekend redoing my passwords using LastPass. But that they have some certification on there. You can, if you use them and you have your sites listed with them, they'll go out and check and see if those certs have been updated. And so it's kind of nice.
And they have checked them and given me the little updates, which ones to update. I actually highly recommend LastPass. So does the guys on, I don't know if you ever listened to Security Now.
Steve Gibson.
Steve Gibson highly recommends it. I absolutely love it. It's safe, it's secure, and I know I have too many passwords.
Yeah.
And I am a paranoid security guy who needs really long and complex and different passwords for everything. You know, and somebody like my wife, she's a theater, she has her master's in theater. She doesn't care about she won't even put a pin on her mobile phone, so in her case,
she's the perfect to get hacked, right? Yeah.
Fortunately, she doesn't, all her stuff on her computer, you get access to her stage notes, and it's not going to do you any good.
Right. This information
you can steal her thesis.
Any advice? Let's talk about passwords for a second, since you're a hacker, or ethical hacker on that side. What kind of suggestions? I do a tech podcast on Thursday nights, and we've had LastPass on twice over the last year. Amber Gott from LastPass, she has been gracious enough to be on our program. So we've talked about it a lot. Until this weekend, I really never fully implemented a complete use of LastPass. So now every single password is different and unique. I use their password generator to create those. I don't even know what they are.
There's that little test on there.
Yeah, no, right on. And I honestly, in some of my accounts, I don't even know what the passwords are because I set them up, and you just don't know. So you could capture me, torture me. I honestly could not tell you what they are.
But plausible deniability is what that's called.
Exactly. I know really one or two passwords, and there's some for me, and you can tell me maybe good idea or bad idea. For some of the passwords like Facebook and Amazon and Google that I have to log into all the time, especially now that I've put dual factor on there. Any suggestions from a password standpoint from what you know?
If you've got multi-factor, you're pretty good to begin with. And if you read the security books and all the recommendations, almost all of them say 8-character password that's complex. Technically, an 8 or 9 character password is pretty difficult to brute force. It's going to take a while, and most authentication systems have some sort of mitigation against that. So you're not going to get, if somebody tries to brute force your password, they're probably not going to do it. But you should have unique passwords, which LastPass is great for.
Well, and that's the really key, right? With this Heartbleed, is if you're using if you're using a single password across multiple sites,
then you're in trouble.
Doesn't matter how complex it is.
Exactly. And if you use the same password for your bank account that you do for your Facebook, or for even worse, some random little forum that you're a member of, those are more likely to get hacked than anything. But if your password's different for that forum than it is for your bank and for your Facebook, then you almost got nothing to worry about, unless somebody gets access to your email, and then you're in trouble.
Right.
Because if you're like me and 90% of the world, all of your backups come in through your email, so you get click forgot password, it sends you an email.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Although some of them have systems where you have to go back to that link and re-authenticate.
That's true.
And some banking institutions have these almost dual factor built
asking
in.
questions.
A couple years ago, they got smart and did that. But you're right. Any one of those can be compromised. Email, banking. It's just not. I think you got to cover all your user groups or forums, especially for us tech guys. I think that's the, John Doe sets a forum that you're up, and you have no idea what kind of security he has for your password.
Or if it's secure at all. Yeah.
True.
But if it has good info, so you become a member, that's where you want to make sure you maybe use a throwaway email account, definitely just a different password,
Yeah. And
I even have kind of a junk password that I use with my junk email, and I use some variation of that for a lot of the quote-unquote throwaway sites, forums that I go to sometimes, or some membership I had to sign up for to get a white paper I wanted to read or whatever.
Right.
So there's a lot of that too.
Yeah. And they'll generate one-time passwords for you too.
Yeah.
If you know you're just going to.
LastPass will.
Yeah. If you know you're just going to be there one time, just generate the password, set up.
And
the
it'll
account.
save it. So it's someday when you go back and you're like, oh man, I don't have any idea. It's technically saved in your LastPass.
Yeah, Heartbleed was probably the single best thing ever to happen to LastPass ever. I'll have to call Amber. I'll have to call her and say, hey, Amber, you guys, I bet you're getting a million calls.
Yeah, and a bunch of new customers and
interviews.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, Matthew Monahan, who we interviewed, he brought up LastPass.
Oh, really?
I think everybody right now, that's just one of those.
It really is, and it's one of the best ones out there.
Yeah.
And it works well. It's free unless you want it on your mobile, and it's only $12.
Yeah, $1
forever.
Right.
I mean, you don't pay $12 a year, so
Yep.
who cares?
Yeah.
So I bought that. It was worth every penny.
We highly recommend it. Hey, let's talk about the future a little bit, because we talked about kind of what's going on presently. As you look out across the world of security, what are you seeing out there that we kind of need to start thinking about? Are there things out there you're worried about?
User education. Like, without a doubt, we've got some amazing hardware out there that will secure your network from technical attacks. I mean, if you walk through the booths here, you can see some of the $1 million devices you can buy that will protect your network, but none of that's any good as soon as your user puts in a stupid password or tells their password to somebody on the phone or allows somebody to remote in their computer. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm a pretty firm believer that that's the biggest gap in security these days and in the future is user knowledge, user education. It's
the weakest
tricky.
link.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
it's also the hardest thing to figure out if you think about it, because a user's not a technical person. We're not trying to make them an expert in security. What we need to do is make the user care about security by really focusing that security training on them. A lot of what I've tried to do whenever I get an opportunity to train is do something along the lines of I'm going to teach a user how to protect their own bank account or their own Wi-Fi, and then tie it back to the business. So then all of a sudden it matters to them, because their own money is involved. And that's really key. Make them care, then teach them, or else they're not going to care or learn.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think dual factor is something, and we're going to have to figure out easy dual factor for the user.
And it's getting there.
In some way.
It's getting there. We're getting closer to it.
Fingerprint or something.
Or just your phone. Everyone has a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Everyone can get a text message.
Almost.
Well, even the people who have old, dumb phones still have
feature phones.
Yeah. They still have the ability to get text.
Right.
And a text can be your two-factor. That's what I have from Google.
True.
I get a text from them.
I just turned on two-factor for all my accounts, as I was going through this weekend looking for those, all those changes. And it's a little bit of a pain at first, I'll admit, because you're like, I'm logging on the laptop, I'm like, oh.
Now I got to wait for a text.
All right, hold on, open up my phone, type the number in, and so there is a little bump there, initially to get over that.
There is a bump, and that's the hardest thing about security is, security and convenience are not really friends. So and that's the hardest thing in any organization, because especially ones that have been around for a long time, like Hewitt, for example, they've been around since long before computers were around, and they're a construction industry, so it's hard to get them into that mindset. Your computers are important to your business. Your information is vital. You need to secure it. And that's been a struggle before I got there. Yeah. Now they're getting there. Now they're a lot more secure than they were. But it was a big struggle, and it is for most organizations.
And the organization fights it in a lot of ways, right? And sometimes they don't mean to, but when it makes it harder to do my job.
Yep. Right. I can't count the times I've seen a door with a key pass that's propped open. I mean,
like,
somebody spent
a
lot of money to put that in place for a reason, and you have a pass that should be in your pocket, or but people get sick of it. Users find a way around it. They don't understand why.
Tape it.
They tape it open. Especially the smoker's door. You'll always see it at the smoker's door. It's usually propped open in some way.
Well, we're going through a security awareness program right now. Every week for a year, every year for a week, we go through security awareness. And our motto at Gallup is be a human firewall. Because really, we are the weakest link, right, in that sense. So user training, education, I think is key. You got to get through it. You mentioned Wi-Fi earlier, and the status of Wi-Fi, especially personal Wi-Fi. The Wild Wild West a couple years ago, nobody was locking it down. People were getting. Does that matter anymore? I mean, in the world of Wi-Fi, where are we at?
If your home Wi-Fi has WPA2 on it, you're probably good. You don't have too much to worry about. Now, what I would worry about is when you go to Starbucks or McDonald's and you see that big free Wi-Fi symbol. In my opinion, there should be a huge warning above it that says, "Warning: your information is open on the air, and anybody can capture it." And that's where a lot of the research I've done comes in. Using things like the Wi-Fi Pineapple, or even just Kali Linux with some extra Wi-Fi radios. I can capture all the signals that are going over that, and even if you're connected to that website through a secure manner, unless you're using VPN, which I can't crack easily.
Sure.
I can read your data. So your Facebook passwords, your bank account passwords, that's plain text to somebody who's capturing that data.
Are my LastPass passwords all
They could be.
Okay.
It depends. I mean, it really depends on what certificates are being used and how the person's attacking it,
So that's really dangerous.
Yeah, it really is. When you're in an airport and you see free_Wi-Fi, don't use it.
Yeah.
It's probably me with my Pineapple hoping to capture you.
But what about Starbucks Wi-Fi?
Even Starbucks can be scary.
Okay.
I mean, it's easy to, when you go on a Starbucks Wi-Fi or McDonald's or any of those places, you come to what's called a captive portal that says, I agree to these terms, continue, and you click on that little checkbox. So then you know you're on their Wi-Fi. Well,
Right.
I can set up a fake captive portal in 30 seconds. It looks exactly like that.
Spoof it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you still think you're on the safe Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And if you don't see it, are you really going to think about it? I
Right,
mean, if
right.
all of a sudden you're on the internet, you're going to be like, sweet, I didn't have to check in this time.
Yeah.
You're not even going to think about it. And,
No, you just-
little do you know.
I need to get to my work email.
Exactly. And then
Right.
you're on your work email, and somebody's capturing every packet that comes through.
Wow.
Yep. You
Yeah.
see it all. So wireless is secure, but the people need to be knowledgeable.
Sure. So, what are some tips for people? Let's just talk about some practical, because the day of free Wi-Fi is here, right?
Yeah, it is.
You can go
It's
anywhere.
everywhere.
You can any restaurant,
Yep.
If you
It
go
really
to the
is.
gas station, they got Wi-Fi coming out.
There's a lot of VPN providers.
Okay.
I mean, you can do something. There's a lot of free ones. So if you're using, or even you can use your Tor browser, which will make it pretty safe. But there's like Pro XPN that you can buy. I mean, I don't work for them.
Okay.
I'm not plugging
Sure,
them, but
sure,
it's
sure.
a
Yeah.
really good service. It's like $5 a month or something. And then you're secure, even on an open Wi-Fi, because you're going through a VPN tunnel, and that's not crackable.
Yeah.
Not easily.
Right.
So I'm not going to be able to reach traffic. And neither is
The goal
attack.
for the hacker is to make it harder than the easiest guy.
That's security through obscurity, which is a scary topic in and of itself. But to a point, yes. You know, like having a 4-digit PIN on your phone, it's not very hard to crack a 4-digit PIN, but at least there's something.
Yeah.
You know, that if you have it's just like if your car door is locked and the guy next to you is not, they're probably going to get the guy next to you. But I can pick a lock, and
Sure.
criminals definitely can pick a lock. So it's not
Right.
that hard to break into your car
Right.
or your house. It's a deterrent. It
Yeah.
helps.
Well, locks are for the honest people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In a lot of ways,
Yeah, really, locks and security are to keep the honest people honest. The thing I always tell anyone I work with, clients or friends, anyone, if you're targeted, you're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have $10 million worth of security. If somebody decides that they want into your systems and they really want into your systems, they're going to get into your systems. There's just nothing. Then you're about cleanup and fixing the problem. You're not going to stop them because
Sure.
they're going to find a way.
They're going to get in, yeah. It's just like physical security, right? Even though you can physically secure something, there's always vulnerabilities.
Yep, there's
in
always
that.
a way.
So-
A robber with a gun is going to get into that account or into
Right,
into
right.
the safe.
Exactly.
It's there.
It's hard. So for the average user, I go into Starbucks and I'm working. A lot of people use Starbucks as that home
I
office.
do too.
So yeah, well, everybody
Yeah.
does, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. Wi-Fi is one of the things. Let's talk about a security phone versus PC. So I go into Starbucks and I connect with my PC, or I go in and use the free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Different or the same?
No, it's
security
the
issues?
same.
Okay.
Same security issues. And what I always tell people is you've got 4G in your phone. Why are you using the free Wi-Fi? I mean, and then they're like, well, my bandwidth. And I'm like, well, you need to get a different user, different carrier.
Different plan or-
If you're that worried about your bandwidth, expand your plan or something, or stop watching YouTube all day long on your
Right.
phone or whatever it is. But, I mean, with my phone, I turn off the Wi-Fi when I'm not at home or I'm not around a secure Wi-Fi. If I'm at work or something, then I turn it on.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I just leave it off on my phone.
Sure.
It's safer. But my tablet doesn't have that cellular connectivity, so then I'm gonna end up using the free
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Right.
And in
right.
that case, just be careful what you do.
Okay.
I mean, if you're just going on there and looking up the recipe to make dinner that night or making a grocery list or something, you're fine, but maybe don't go log into your bank account and transfer money around.
Yeah.
And-
Well, now the vulnerability is if there's someone there sniffing packets,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Is
And
did I
it's-
use the right terminology
Yep,
there?
yep.
Okay.
And that's the vulnerability, and it's not like there's somebody at every Starbucks doing that. In fact, it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
I haven't met a lot of people who have a Wi-Fi pineapple or care to do it because it is illegal. I mean,
Right.
they are breaking the law to steal your data. Technically, capturing packets that are in the air, it's not illegal.
Okay.
But doing anything with that data, that's illegal.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
then
Okay.
we start running into the law.
Any of the browsers support any kind of to help with that?
I think, well, I mean, there's a Tor version of Firefox that you
Okay.
can use, and you can have Tor on there. And I'm sure there's plugins that will give
extensions
you encryption,
maybe,
extensions.
and don't ever
in fact,
use
I think there's
IE.
a Pro XPN. Yeah, I don't use Internet Explorer except at work where I'm required.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
insane. But yeah, I use stay away from Internet
Okay.
Explorer.
Okay.
Not even an icon for it on my desktop.
Just
Nothing. Don't even use it.
Don't, just
I
don't
like
use
Chrome personally,
Yeah.
but Firefox,
Yeah.
Chrome, even was Safari. I
Right.
mean, they're pretty much the same.
Although Safari on Windows is no longer supported. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, then don't use that.
It's done at this point.
If it's not supported, don't use it.
The other day I fired it up to try something, and I went to YouTube, and it was they're like, hey, we don't support this anymore.
Wow.
I think it was the Flash version that YouTube uses in Safari on Windows. So
okay.
a pretty specific
Yeah.
use case there. But
But
that being
Safari's
said,
the Apple one, is it not?
Yeah.
So they don't like Flash.
No,
So that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. Well, we always in our tech shows we always talk about for the average guy, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of what we talk about.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
VPN. Any other options on being secure that way?
Well, I mean, just think about what you're doing.
Okay.
You know, that's the biggest key.
So just be smart.
Yeah, just be smart. Think about what you're doing. If you're in on public Wi-Fi and it's not something you'd want, just anyone to see, then don't do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Just think about it.
Yeah. So before you say I'm already logged into Facebook
Mhm.
and I go on their Wi-Fi and it doesn't force me to log in. Still the same problem of passing things? Or?
You're probably fine.
Okay.
I mean, somebody's got to capture your stuff, and they got to have SSL strip running, and it's a pretty complicated
They got to work hard
process.
for
Yeah,
it
they
just
gotta
to
work
get your
hard.
Facebook.
Yeah. And so they got to really want it or really be bored. And if they're really bored, they're probably
Not
just having
worried
fun.
about you.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
going to really steal your data.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
No.
if you're being targeted, that's when you're in
advice.
trouble.
Good advice. We've got just a couple minutes left. I want to talk about your presentation that you're doing here. What kind of what are you hoping to what are the major points?
Well, I'm
you're
hoping to
across?
get people to put pins on their phones
Okay.
and
we're
think about
forced to.
using.
You know, when we attach to our Exchange network,
Mhm.
it
It
requires
should
us
be
to put a pin.
enforced. Most
Yeah, yeah.
organizations do that, but I've been at some that don't, which is just shocking. And worked on trying to convince them into doing
user
so.
convenience, right?
Yeah,
It's usually
exactly.
yeah.
Well, it's just easier to not worry about it.
Right.
But yeah, it should be that way. And when you connect to your Exchange, it'll give you a warning. It should that says we reserve. This is your device, but if it gets stolen and you tell us or you quit and you haven't removed Exchange, we're going to wipe your device. And they will. They'll wipe it. All your
Wipe
pictures,
it clean.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is good.
Users freak out about that, though.
Yeah, they do. They always
they're
do.
like, oh, I don't even know if I want to attach email to
I
my
know.
phone then.
Yeah.
Or
That's
the
hopefully what
other
they'll do.
option, 7, I think it's configurable, but 7 tries and whoop, phone, woof. I mean, just puff of smoke.
Puff of smoke
Not
goes
not literally, but
Yeah.
it reboots.
Put some security on your phone too is another thing. I use a program called Lookout Security, I think. But there's hundreds of apps out there.
Little green shield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I like about that one though is it's set up so if somebody puts in the PIN wrong 3 times, which I've done a million times because I have a 6-digit PIN, it will actually email me a picture. Of the person.
Yes, that's
and
awesome.
so I've got my own picture like sideways while I'm in my car. But on top of that, there's a button at the bottom that says wipe your phone. You can also, so you could wipe it instantly right then and there, or you could make your phone scream if you think it's somewhere near you, and it will just at maximum volume make a horrid noise.
That's awesome.
Or you can, so there's a long list of things you can do. Security is software. There's free stuff. Use some.
Right.
Use something that will protect you.
Yeah.
Don't download apps from random places.
Yeah.
That's also a horrible thing to do. If you jailbreak your phone for fun, that's fine, but be really careful what you put on it.
Yeah.
The Apple Store is very meticulous about what they allow on there.
Right.
The Play Store is
Not so
slightly less meticulous, but they still are somewhat. The things that have gotten by on the Play Store are these malware that transforms once it's in. So they can't even, so they test it, and there's no malicious in there, but it has transforming code and
interesting. I did not know
or
that.
it downloads an update, and the update has the malware in it. There's a lot of ways around it.
Yeah. Got a lot of ways to hide it. One of the things I recommend is just get a second phone if you're going to jailbreak your phone. If you want to do that for fun,
that's a good call.
Go buy a second phone, get one. Go a generation back, and you can find them on Craigslist or eBay. Wipe it clean, and then make that your burner phone, so to speak. If you're gonna do it that way,
that's a good call.
I know some people like it they like to use the features that come on their phone and those other things. And so, that's your decision.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of jailbreaking.
Yeah, I don't ever root or jailbreak my active.
Rooting is big, right? Rooting's big on the Android side.
But the active phone I'm using now, I have other phones at home that are rooted, and I have tablets that are rooted. But my primary phone, I leave it, on the actual as secure as I can.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if you root your Android, you technically can be more secure than most carriers will let you, because you can upgrade to the newer version. So it's kind of a catch-22 there.
Yeah.
But having root access to anything means that an attacker can have root access.
Although generally, if you're rooting your phone, you're the top 1% in the tech world, and you probably, hopefully, you know what you're doing. I know some folks who don't, but in most cases, you probably know what you're doing, and so it's one. I'm sure people who are watching this are going to watch it later are like, I could root my phone and handle it.
Oh yeah, go for it. If you can handle it, go for it. I do it. I mean, I have fun with it.
John, we're at the end of our time. It was very interesting. Thank you for coming over here and
me.
Spending some time doing this.
Absolutely.
Great to hear that you're a fellow Army guy, and always good to talk to those guys.
Absolutely.
And we were stationed 20 years apart, but like
in the same area,
2 miles from each. I mean, 2 hours from each
really
other.
Close. Yep.
They're in Germany. Again, Jim Collison, John Nye. We're wrapping up here InfoTech 2014 and wrapping up this conversation. And more to come. Hang tight if you're watching live. Hang tight. We'll be back with more interviews shortly.